Seconds. We've got David Whitley standing by in the orange and blue room. We're going to talk about the new pickup for the Gator defense in the portal. We're going to go over some picks, some draft picks. We've got Scott Carter coming later, Lauren Meadows and trivia, all coming your way tonight right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Wake up your neighbors and tell them the Buddy Martin Show is on the air.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program. It's a Tuesday night. That means David Whitley is going to be joining us momentarily. And later on, we'll have a little review of the draft, plus some information on the new Gator that is committed today in the portal, something that someone who should be a good fit for this team. And then it's Tuesday. That means Lauren Meadows has trivia and giveaways. So stay tuned for all of that. So let's go right to the Orange and Blue Room and see our good friend David Whitley. He rode over tonight in a Bentley and with the top down and eating caviar and drinking champagne like he always does as part of his contract. David, good evening to you. Hope your ride was okay in the Bentley.
It was okay. Yeah, I mean the convertible was a nice touch because it's getting that time of year where it's nice to ride, in the summer, approaching summer, and a little cool before now. So I think the Bentley's a nice touch. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper than the helicopter you used to have. So that's helpful. All right, just appreciate your generosity.
Well, it's all about the carbon. It's all about the carbon footprint. We keep it low.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say good evening to Tommy Guns, who's on the line here this evening. Michael Burton, always here on a regular basis. Our loyal friend David Baldoff, dilly to you, Robert Turner, all lining up tonight. And we're going to talk about some ball. David, let's get right to the news. The Gators, first of all, if anybody's got to update a score, in the ninth inning, we're leading FSU 7-5. It was a crazy game. They got a 5 spot in the first inning, the Gators did, and then let FSU back in at 4 spot. I'm sorry. FSU came back in the bottom half and scored 5 runs before finally a couple of home runs, one of them by Jack Caglione, who tied the school record, and I didn't see it because I don't have TV of this game here for some reason, if it was on. And Michael says 7-5 final. Okay, thank you. Great relieving performance by the bullpen too. So anyway, they were the home run that he hit to tie the record with 26 home runs apparently went over the fence and bounced back. And they first called it a triple, and then they had to replay, and they found out it was a home run. So 26 for Jack Caglione. What a story he is, David.
Yeah, I remember interviewing him a couple of weeks ago, and we asked him, "What did you think you'd do this year?" And he said, "Maybe 15, and he'd be happy with that."
Wow.
Because he didn't know really what to expect because, last year he came in as really as a pitcher, but he had the Tommy John surgery, so he couldn't pitch last year. But they put him in towards the end of the season, just as a DH mainly, and he showed some promise, but nobody expected this coming around. For what he's done here, and you just think, goodness, if he could end up 33, 34 home runs, and I mean, when you think as long as they've been playing baseball in Florida and nobody's hit 30 home runs, nobody's come close to hitting 30 runs.
Right.
26 is good. That's not quite where you're threatening 30, but you're thinking, well, looking down the road, he may be the only guy who can get it in the next few years. If he comes back next year.
Well, they will. He'll be back next year.
Yeah, he will. He has to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Well,
mean, heck,
it's true. Yeah.
if he just it just is bat alone, but then you throw in his pitching, which is
Yeah.
it's a high octane adventure every time he goes out there. You know,
Good
he
way of
he,
putting it.
he throws the heat, and occasionally it crosses the plate, occasionally it doesn't. But just he has so much talent that they got to put him out there and just hope he can just rein it in enough to be a semi dependable third starter.
But don't say semi, okay?
Yeah.
Because that means
All right.
the other team.
Yes.
Sort of,
That's right.
sort
Not
of,
tonight.
okay?
Yeah.
Not
This,
tonight.
this would have been a really big win for FSU because obviously their season is historically bad, and they could have salvaged just a smidgen of, I don't self-respect, but just a smidgen of good feeling if they had beaten the Gators at home.
Mm-hmm.
But because when it's just not the Knowles year, it's that's a head scratcher because that program has just been solid, money in the bank. I mean, I guess it's the first time they won't make the postseason like 40 years, something like that.
Well, don't talk about it too much, because it might go away. Okay, it's like a no hitter.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have that. But well, let's do this real quick. Let me just say good evening to my sponsor. I'll come back. I want you to talk about this latest pickup. Finally, some activity in the portal, which we all would like to see. And I'm going to tell you what I told Shane Matthews right now. And you think about it. And people who know me know that I'm basically bleed orange and blue, and you know that. But I made a statement this morning. I'm going to back it up, and I say it again to you as I did to Shane. And that is, I don't mean this harshly, it's just truthfully, that Florida's Billy Napier is on the clock, okay? Think about that for a second. He's on the clock. We come back, we'll explain it right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Stay tuned. Let's hear this word from our friends at Titan MRI.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, thanks very much, Jeff Cardozo. Back to the Orange and Blue Room. Our buddy David Whitley is here with us. So, first of all, do you know much about Moten, the kid they picked up from Michigan? He has some Gator ties. I'm sure you do.
Yeah. The name rang a bell. First, I don't want to apologize. I see where Michael Burton said I have the wrong color shirt tonight. Purely coincidental. So I was looking around my office here if I had something to change into, but my only option was to go topless, and we didn't want to go there.
Well, I got a black shirt on. What does that make me? I mean, what are you going to say?
That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we get too hyper about stuff. Like, go ahead.
Yeah. I said Moten. I know that name, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a legacy run. But then, boy, I didn't realize how long ago the legacy was. Dad played in the '90s. I thought, of course, that just seemed when the '90s seemed like they were 10 years ago, and you're getting old.
Yeah.
But it was a while. But his son, he's a player. Anytime you get a guy who started 20 some odd games for Michigan, in the Big Ten, it's a quality pickup, no doubt about it. And it, as you said, it not just a good player, but it comes at kind of player that they really need at that position. That was a sort of a glaring hole that they needed to. I mean, the kid McLean and Emmanuel, they've got a lot of potential, but they're young, and to know you can get a guy in there at safety who's been to war, over and over and over in the Big Ten. That's you see nothing but plus signs with this pickup.
Right. As Robert Turner's remembering, just for those who don't know, reading Gator Bait and Kyle Curtis's story this morning when he was helped breaking that story, he says Moten ties to Florida also add a sentimental element to his commitment. His father's success as the Gators makes his decision to wear the same uniform even more meaningful. It will surely be a proud moment for Ron Moten to watch his son play in the same stadium. where he once made a name for himself. And as you did, of course, you mentioned that he did play in quite a few games. He has 2 years of eligibility left, which is good. And his father said he'd not been back to Gainesville since he played. RJ scouting report says he can play safety or ball club to play linebacker, making him a versatile asset. So just about the time I was about to sort of get a little anxious about the portal and made some comments this morning about it, like, okay, let's put this in. Let's just put it up there as a journalist and put it on the board and say, what are the facts, okay? Well, I said Billy Napier is on the clock. What did you think I meant?
Well, I think you meant that, that this isn't a make or break year, but it's pretty close to it. I mean, I mean, barring some catastrophe, I am certain he'll get 3 years at the helm to do what he needs to do, or hopes to do. So, in a sense, every coach is on a clock to some extent.
Yeah, naturally. Just like it is when you're in a draft, you're on the clock. Doesn't mean that if you don't make the right pick, you get fired. I'm just saying there's a sense of urgency.
It's just Midnight is close. Midnight is a lot closer, to some on some clocks than it is on other clocks. Like I mean, Nick Saban's on the clock too, but his it's about 2 p.m. for Nick. He's nowhere near. And Kirby Smart is on is on the clock too, but it would take about 5 straight bad years, so you don't see that coming. But people. I mean, you got to see something from improvement from Billy this year,
and that's what I'm talking about.
The frustrating thing is going to be that I think that they could be much improved, but their record may not be that much improved.
Now, that's the point of debate that we're going to have all summer. Yeah. If I could just say to you this premise, and we'll discuss this, and Shane and I have got a pretty good pro and con going on this. I'm not saying Billy's going to fail, nor do I want him to, nor do I want him to leave. I'm trying to be realistic when I say, if this were Joe Schmo from Kokomo and not Billy Napier we like, how would we judge him? I mean, we did turn on Dan Mullen pretty fast, let's be honest. Not that he didn't deserve it, he did, but the fact is, this is what their job is. So I think the issue is, let's say, all right, Billy Napier came here, we were all excited about it, we thought maybe we'd hired a better coach than LSU. Some people in Louisiana thought we had two, by the way. And I talked to them. But we said, okay, he needs a facility, right? Check. $110 million facility, right? He needs a big staff. Check. 100 support people, right? He needs a budget to recruit. Check. Big recruiting budget. And so now it's all down to NIL. Check. NIL deal comes through. So all the boxes have been checked, and he's been given the tools. Now, at the same time, I understand. I liken him to what I call a slow cooker. If you're cooking a pig, some people have to roast it 8 hours to make it work, whatever. And maybe that's how he operates. But the question is, how long does he have before Gator fans run out of patience? And what are they willing to tolerate, given that he has been given everything he needs? And what does that mean? Now, Shane came out and said, I think he'll win 8 games. I looked at the schedule today. Now, I don't know. I haven't started breaking it down, but I have a hard time seeing 8 at this point, knowing what little I do. I present this to you, my friend, and now your witness. You give me your thoughts.
Well, I think it's good that that people are thinking, boy, eight's going to be a stretch, because last year, that was sort of like, well, eight would be feasible, maybe, get lucky, maybe 9. But now I think it will certainly help that the expectations have been lowered. And if he goes out and they go 7-6, people, and they look better doing it, and they beat a rival, that would be key. I don't say beating Georgia, but it would certainly help to beat either Tennessee, FSU, yeah, something like that, and certainly no Vandy slip up this year. Right. I think that would I mean, as bad as it was losing Vandy once, I don't know if maybe, gosh, maybe your dad was in school the last time Florida lost to Vandy twice, 2 years in a row. I mean, I don't know if this ever happened, but it certainly had happened, since Haley's Comet has been around the last couple of circuits. So, I mean, he's got to avoid just a catastrophic embarrassment loss like that. But I think if he just shows the improvement, I mean, yeah, fans, a certain segment is not going to be happy no matter what. But I think the key thing is that I think the people in charge, his boss, will be happy, and if he sees the improvement, if it's a 7-6, but things are on the upswing, then the guy who really keeps the clock, Scott Strickland, he won't be looking at midnight and even thinking about it for another year or so. Now next year, I mean, year 3, I think will be the make or break one. That's when you got to start seeing all the boxes that you mentioned earlier. They will have time. It's a slow cooker. By then, the meal will have had time to simmer, and it will be. There will be. I think the one excuse you can still put out right now is that it hadn't had time. This cake he's baking to develop.
Right.
Well, you give it another year to bake, then it's time to come up and show something and start serving up. Yeah, if we're still
get the cake out of the rain. All right, what was that?
Yeah.
Song? Someone left the cake out in the rain.
Yeah, if a year from now we're still saying, man, I don't know their schedule, they'll be lucky to win 8 games. That's not what anybody signed on for, including him. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what it'll do. But for now, you hate to say, patience will be a virtue this next year. But if you're, realistically, I think 7 to 8 wins is a ceiling for this team. It's just a lot of it is avoiding that catastrophic embarrassment loss and beating. You got to beat a rival, I think, this year. That just for the mojo, just to keep fans, because you don't go 2 straight years with saying, gosh, Georgia, Tennessee, FSU again.
But what does your gut tell you, David? You're paid to write a column and give your opinion, your insights. If you're sitting down and write right now, what does your gut tell you that is going to happen to Napier? Do you have a feeling about him? What's in your bones right now, David?
Yeah, my bones are that he will get it together, and I think it's by year 3 that come when you see the quality of recruit that he's bringing in, and just the type of recruit that he wants to bring in, that buys into the program. I think, I think that he will be by year 3. We're not going to say we'll look back and go, holy cow, weren't we fools to ever doubt this guy? But I think they're looking long term. It's sort of different. The last couple of coaches who've come in, I think 3, they started out fast and then they burned out. This I think is just the opposite. He started out slowly, and I think it's going to improve, and more for the long run. Now, the problem is that how good they get. The neighborhood that they're living in is always going to be tough. It's just that Georgia's not going to be bad, anytime soon. The others, you can make an argument. South Carolina's on the upswing. There's, it's tough, but so it's not. The old days where it's SEC championship or bust. There's a failure. I think are gone just because it's especially once you're bringing Oklahoma and Texas, coming anybody who wins the SEC. They're going to, you got to be, if not the best team, one of the best, obviously 2 or 3 teams in the nation. But I think it will be a top 10 program, on that. And if things fall right, they will be making where if they don't get into the playoff, fans should expect a playoff. And I think that's on the track that we're at.
Well, with 12 teams now coming up after this year, the bad news is Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in the lead. The good news is your 12 teams can make the makeup. I don't think it's unrealistic for Gator fans to think their team should be in the top 12. Maybe not this year, but by year 3, they got to be. By the way, they also signed a kid I think I got a visit from a kid from Louisiana, of all places, a DB, who's being winded down by everybody, including LSU and Alabama, whatever. I think Billy's odds are pretty good. He might grab him, too. So these next 2 choices, I guess, in my discussion with Shane this morning, we talked about how do you know what players he's getting? Because we don't, except that I know that it seemed like the good players that Florida wanted that were being lured by Georgia, Alabama, and others, they didn't get many of those, right? I mean, maybe a few, mostly. It seems that way. I know I'm sounding like I'm really harsh. I'm not being harsh. I'm just saying at some point, David, you played cards, right? You played.
Oh yeah,
You played poker. I mean, nickel,
right,
dime,
right.
dollar, whatever it may be. I was saying this morning. This is a good column for you one day. What if the SEC football were like a poker game, and because you're trying to assess everybody else's hands, right, by their demeanors, their tells, etc. And you say going in, if you dealt the cards, what do you think they're holding? Well, it seems like Kirby's holding four of a kind. It seems that way. Seems like Saban's got a full house, right? Maybe Tennessee's got a straight. I'm not sure. South Carolina may have two pair. I don't know. In other words, if you go around the league and you sort of look at it that way, because ultimately you got to play your hand. And right now, Billy is about to have to play his hand. What kind of hand is he holding? He doesn't have four of a kind or a full house. Inside straight, I'm not sure, David. How would you assess it?
Well, I think he has right now two
pair.
Well, I think he's got a pair of queens, okay. Which so if everybody else had a pair, you're looking good. But as you said, at least 3 or 4 teams have a better hand. But I think last year he probably had 10 high, or maybe king high,
jack high,
no pair. So he upped a pair of queens now. Next year year 3 he needs to have 2 pair at least.
And what could you turn that hand into, and how quickly? If he's got a pair of queens, it could be 3 of a kind. Could be not likely to be 4 of a kind. If you're drawing, it still could be a full house. But realistically speaking, if you're putting your money down, you got to put your money out there and cover the raise. Then you got to think, you got to project what you think your hand's going to be. Some bluff a little better than others, right? And here's why I'm bringing it up too. Remember the most famous quote that Billy Napier had when he got here. It really wasn't related to gambling, but was scared money don't make money.
Mm-hmm. Well, he proved that with his going for it on fourth down quite a bit.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, but you're right, and that wasn't bluffing. But back to the gambling metaphor, you know that Kirby ain't bluffing. He's got it.
No,
you don't have
Kirby's sitting there with either a full house or 4 of a kind.
Yeah, and so what he's got, and that he's not going to be bluffed out of it. So
right.
so you got to have
right.
There ain't no bluffing back because he's going to call you.
No.
Yeah, and so it's still going to take a few more shuffles of the deck. For them to find that.
Sure.
It's not like he's just trying to match a good pro. He's got to compete with the best program in America now.
Yeah.
For everything.
Robert Turner says he thinks Florida has a full house. I think it's a little early for that. Maybe you're drawing. Maybe you got 2 queens and you're trying to, or maybe you got 2 pair. We'll see. But I think that's a little strong. Speaking of gambling, and speaking of which, I almost let this get by. Saturday is the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
And being my hometown here in Ocala, being the horse capital of the world, I've covered this race a lot of times. I say a lot, probably, 8 or 9, 10 times way back when. I got to see Secretariat win his Triple Crown. And I love horse racing, but I only follow it this time of year. So the field has been picked and the posts have been settled. I'm told the favorite, and the one everybody loves, who won the Florida Derby, is Forte. Or Pat Forty, I guess maybe it's named after Pat Forty. Todd Pletcher is the trainer, and he's wearing the number 15, which bodes well around here. So anyway, Derby stuff. You have any thoughts on that?
I know that it is the best sporting event I've ever covered because it's over in it's over in 2 minutes. It's like it's like a Super Bowl in 2 minutes. Boom, it's done, and then everybody looks at the other and says, "Really? What just happened?" And then you go down and you don't have to worry about getting big time by the athletes because they're not talking anyway,
Right.
There is nothing like, everybody, for bucket list, there's nothing like that. My old Kentucky home,
Oh yeah.
when they crank that up and the horses come by, and it is the most exciting 2 minutes in sports without a doubt.
It really is.
Boom, and the way it's really over like that, and it's just, and I was just totally lost the first time I went up there, but I was a horse. You just get immersed in it, and fans, and for one day at least, America stops, and they all become horse fans for a day, and then if that horse happens to win the Preakness, then they all become horse fans for the Belmont. So, but going into it, it's sort of like the reverse of the draft. There's a billion mock drafts, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry in America can have one leading up to the NFL draft. Yeah. Unless you're a railbird, they have 1 out of 1,000 people who probably name the horses going into it. But come Saturday, we'll bone up, and we'll have our pony out there. And Frank, I always bet on the brown one.
The brown one, okay.
Yeah, brown ones always seem to do well.
All right, let's bring Scott Carter in here. I bet he's got a horse too, and see what he's got thinks about it. I haven't picked my horse yet. I've got to check the Florida breds because I'm not sure yet how many are in it. And say good evening to David. Scott, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? I always go with the bay ones. So David's got the brown.
Yeah. I don't know the colors of them yet, but I can give you the feel. Here's the names real fast. 1 through 20. Hit Show. Verifying. Two Fills, Confidence Game, Tap It Trice, 5-1 by the way, King's Bama, Reincarnate, Mage or Mage, M-A-G-E, Skinner, that's Shane's horse because his number is 9, Practical Move, Disarm, Jacob's Road, Sun Thunder, Angel of Empire, 40, who's the favorite at 3-1, Ray's Kane, Dima Shuragate, Chicago, it must be a Japanese horse, I think it is, Rocket Can, Lord Miles, and Continuer. Any names strike you guys?
Well, I like the Lord Miles. That's who I'm going with. Mm-hmm. He's probably the longest shot in the field.
I like Skinner just because it reminds me of the old PE coach at the high school, Leonard Skinner, who became the Van Leonard Skinner. So, Are any Florida horses in there? Any of those?
I haven't checked them all yet. I haven't checked your breeding. I looked it up.
And we got to go with the homeboys.
I know. I assume that you used to be able to look it up on Google, and the local papers had it. I don't know. I looked today, but I got lost. So I'm going to find that out tomorrow. Hope to have it on my show tomorrow night. So I always love the Derby.
Yeah.
And by the way, the horse that's favored is Forte, and he was sired by a horse called Violence. Woo. That's a scary name, isn't it? Violence for a horse, yeah. So,
but who was he out of, buddy? I mean,
who's what?
He was sired, and then you always mention.
You got to be out of and by. Yeah, by is the dad. Right. Yeah, without of. Yeah, right. Hey, listen, I remember when Needles won the Derby, and I was in school, and a good friend of mine who was in school actually helped break him at Ocala Stud, and then shortly thereafter, Carryback, and then it started in Ocala and what have you. But Secretary was great. I went to the Derby once, the Triple Crown Series, with a name that's I like, Sunday Silence, and won money on that horse 2 straight weeks. And I said, I know he can't win. The Belmont's too long for him, but I got to bet him. And I did, and he lost by a neck. You know what everybody means. But yes, I love the sport. So, Scott, rather than take up all your time talking about the horse racing, although I know you appreciate it too. And speaking of gambling, guys, did you read the story about the Ohio gambling regulators instructing the state licensed sports books to halt betting on college baseball games involving Alabama? Ooh. Scott, you tweeted about that today. At least you tweeted that.
Yeah, I saw that. The only thing I can think of is somehow Saban's coaching the baseball team now, so they're trying to get their arms around that.
No doubt. That's a good point. I'm sure that's involved some way somehow. David, and I've been talking about what's ahead for Billy, given the fact that he has a nice little hand to play in the game of poker. We were saying regarding he's got all the goodies he wanted with the, obviously with the NIL thing buttoned up now, and he's got his big staff, he's got the facility, he's got the recruiting money, and so we were liking this whole thing to a poker game, but you can't beat the guy in right now in Athens. He's got four of a kind, and the guy in Tuscaloosa probably got a full house and so on. It will be interesting to see how this year plays out. Scott, the news today that Florida picked up a kid with a Gator legacy out of Michigan who will play apparently Sadie, although I understand he could bulk up. Moten, what do you know about him?
Well, just from, I knew that he was a guy that he kind of looked at. He's obviously an experienced player. I think he started 15 games up there. And that's where the Gators have an area of need, after losing Dean and Torrance. So they need a guy who can play, who can come in right away and make an impact. And I'm sure that's partly why he's here. And you're right. His father, Ron Moten, actually played at Florida. A lot of fans will remember Ron Moten for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. But, he I just think it's just an experienced move. I mean, you got to kind of shore up that back end of the secondary, and this guy can come in and play right away. And I think that's the key behind it all, and we'll see how it works out.
I guess I'll ask this question. Bill Feinberg, he'll take the black horse, the dark horse. Okay. Since you guys are there, and Scott, you work in the building, sort of, and Dave, what is the vibe now, as they say, around the program at Florida and around the campus? And what does it feel like? And I asked David for his gut feeling a minute ago about this. Scott, what is your vibe about this program and his staff and what's going on?
Well, I think it's just, I don't know, buddy. It's not, it's one of hope, I guess you could say, because there's so many unknowns. There's still a lot of questions around the team, and when you come off, back-to-back losing seasons with two different coaches and a roster that's been revamped, it's natural to have a lot of question marks. I just think that's where Florida is. I think you look at them right now going into the season. I think they're probably kind of in the middle of the SEC East. And it's really going to be dependent on, first, how good or what does Graham Mertz do at quarterback? Because, that's going to be key. And then second, can any of these young players we've heard a lot about, can they be difference makers, which in year one, and, Florida used to put those kind of players on the field a lot, right, guys? But you haven't seen too many Brandon Spikes and Percy Harvins lately. No. But they need some of those guys to be back for the Gators to kind of get back to where they are expected to be. So I just look at this roster as so many unknowns. I mean, I like what they did in the recruiting side of things in the offseason, but I'm one of those people, I just don't get too wrapped up in that until I see it come to production on the field.
How do you feel about that, David?
Well, it makes sense. I wish that we could fast forward again till late August right now, because I'm afraid that that this is the same conversation we'll be having for the next 3 months. That these unknowns we won't know for 3 months. Barring something drastic happen in preseason camp, it's. Yeah. I guess they were still in the market for a quarterback, and I don't know who they were after, but I don't know what's out there now. So as you said, it looks like it's going to be Mertz. Mertz is, you'll sink or swim with him. If you sink, I think there's still hope with Miller. But then everybody's sort of marking the calendars till the next hot shot recruit comes in, and that's one thing that it's sort of like the shiny trinket that they can always dangle out there, even if this is a disappointing year. We got the guy who hopefully we can build this new program upon coming in, but he needs to keep you need some momentum. If you don't need to end this year like last year ended, because things were on the upswing, South Carolina, and then came the pie in the face.
And that's why I said to you earlier,
Yeah.
take this the right way. Billy Napier's on the clock.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does it mean he's going to get fired? No, not necessarily. But he has to produce results. It looks like the same old movie to a lot of us. So we've seen this before, right? We've seen Muschamp. We've seen McElwain. We've seen coaches. Do I think Billy's a cut above that? Probably. But I really liked Mullen after the first 2 years. I thought he was just the right guy. So you can be wrong. And so this is the thing we're weighing now, trying to figure this out. Where do they go? You're right, Scott. They need to get to some of those five, but where do they get them? Now they did get the defensive back apparently from, I guess they got a visit coming. I think they're going to get projected to get from Louisiana. People say, yeah, another Louisiana guy, but he was invited to visit Alabama, LSU, other places. Now they got Moden. There's a rumor afoot, and I reluctantly say this because I don't know how to report these stories, but there's one pretty well-known guy in the media who said in a podcast he has heard, and he says he didn't say this, he's not saying it, didn't come from within, but from Carolina, up there the talk is that McCall is interested, the quarterback from Coastal that we all know is a terrific prospect, is interested in Florida. Now, I don't know how to say this, but the last time I heard was he had academic problems last time. But he's certainly somebody that fits the bill, it seems like. But you say, well, can you really get a quarterback this late in the portal? Because it does. Well, look what Nick Saban just did. Right? How about that?
You can get him, but everybody I think at this point is somewhat damaged goods. Even the kid from Notre Dame, he comes in, but you look at his stats, it's sort of like, I mean, I think it's more of a reflection on, gosh, Alabama, they just had such a succession of plug them in and play QBs, and now, they were looking at them and says, well, we're not so sure about these two guys that we have, there seems to be a break in line of succession where an interloper can come in, and that makes me really question, how Bama's going to do this year, because so much depends on the QB. If you're having to, sort of like, break glass, insert emergency QB from some other school at this late date.
But give Nick credit. I mean, he's trying to go with the times. I mean, this is how the game is played now, right? I mean, I give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, but you expect that to happen, like, Florida or a team that has not been so dominant,
or Jimbo Fisher or whatever.
Yeah, you just don't expect it at Alabama to where, oh man,
what does that mean? What does that mean, Scott, that Alabama does something like that?
Well, it means they've got, they had some concerns at quarterback after spring. Yeah. I think Saban went on record and said that somewhere I saw. And I think you could say the same about Florida, but are the questions in Billy Napier's mind, are they as big as they were for Nick Saban? And of course, they had a great tie-in with the offensive coordinator there who had been at Notre Dame. So, it's a little different with Florida. And, Napier talked all spring, really, since Graham Mertz got here, that he really likes his game. But we've seen I don't rule out anything now, guys. I mean, we saw in Mullins last year. Remember, they added two guys from Auburn the final week before the first game. So, I mean, if camp's going halfway through and Graham Mertz and Jack Miller are looking like me and David out there, well, I would imagine they'll find somebody else to come in there and play.
Not many years ago, you and David might have looked pretty good.
I don't know. Maybe David, but I mean, it's possible these days for those things to happen. We wouldn't even entertain that thought, a few years ago. But I'm sure in Billy Napier's world, I mean, he would love to see Graham Mertz become that guy and solve that issue. But like you guys,
we all would. We'd like it too. It'd be good, right?
Yeah.
But
we just don't. We just don't know until the next 3 or 4 months. We won't know until they get back out.
Don't know how to report it. Let me just real quick, and I don't want to keep you too long, Scott, or you, David, for that matter. But I want to get to the story you tweeted about today, Scott, and it was about the Pat Dooley's piece he wrote on Larry Dupree, and your tweet said, read a nugget that Pat Dooley wrote today on the former Gators running back Larry Dupree, and wanted to learn more. Guy starred in a Florida Georgia game after his wife delivered a stillborn. You can only imagine play of that story in today's media climate. I did that story. I was there and talked to Larry. Larry was
You were there.
Yeah,
Should
and
have known.
Larry was one of my guys. I mean, I kind of feel like I helped.
1963
Yeah.
Florida Georgia
Oh yeah,
game.
yeah, I was there, and I
Yeah.
talked to Larry about it. And the thing about it is that a year and a half, 2 years later, I was in Jacksonville working in a temporary job with Jack Hairston, and Larry Dupree's wife had another baby, and I went to their house and wrote a story about the baby and what it represented. I never forget one of the guys on the news there said, 60 inches on Larry Dupree's baby? What is this getting now? But the bottom line is that that was, and Larry was one of my very favorite players. I really loved him because I remember seeing him the first time when nobody really knew who he was. And just the night he had when Bradford County played against McClenny, and in that game he was knocked out twice. Knocked out. Proceeded to get up one time and go 60 yards for a touchdown. Okay.
So he didn't have to go into concussion protocol.
No. Clearly he had one, but we lost David there. So anyway, and that was just such a special story to me. And here's a little note I wanted to get. Tommy Shannon. You remember the name? He's the guy. I know you didn't know him, but he was the guy Spurrier play. He was a sophomore. Tommy was a senior, and Steve was a sophomore. Steve took over for Tommy Shannon. Tommy wound up going to Outback and becoming a big shot in Outback, and in California, and he's a Hall of Famer. Anyway, he told me this years and years ago. He played with Larry. He said Larry Dupree, to this day, is the greatest Gator football player I ever saw.
Wow.
From McClenny, and he almost didn't get noticed. And the only reason the Gators finally got him was Georgia came after him, and Pepper Rogers went and saw him play. Anyway, R.I.P. Larry Dupree. And thanks for tweeting that out. That was great. Well, Scott, we got 30 seconds to do this. Assessing the draft. The players did a good job today on your story and on your tweet. I think you could say it was a successful draft for Florida, right?
Yeah, 6 players drafted. I mean, that was still one of the best in the country, when you look across the board. And Florida's continued to put out NFL players. And I was really not much surprised other than I was glad to see Amari Burney get drafted because he didn't even get invited to the combine. So that's a good story. And the guys who didn't get drafted, you figured they were going to be undrafted free agent signings. They'll get a look by a team. But I think we'll all see now what Anthony Richardson does at the next level. I mean, that is the kind of like the Gators quarterback, buddy. That's the big question in Indianapolis now.
Yeah, it's a nice story and I wrote this. It is that Anthony, all that talent's a curse almost in some ways, but he did things the right way. He tried to get things straightened out with his nickname AR-15, and he when he got caught speeding, he took that hot car, a Dodge Charger, back and got to Toyota. He hired Vernell to sort of show him the way. And I don't know what this means. I just thought it was nice. On Sunday, he was in church with his family. He's a good kid, and I wish him the best. And for all you folks, who thought he was a hot dog or this, that, and the other, no, he's not. He's a terrific kid. He'll represent the university, I think, very well, don't you?
No, I agree. And, sometimes the stars just don't align in a guy's career sometimes.
Exactly.
It's been great for him to really have been a Heisman candidate at Florida and then had a great season and then get drafted number 4. But the fact is he's just a young 20-year-old quarterback who everybody sees the potential that we saw. And now he gets his turn to see what he can do with it. But I'm like you. I've always been a big Anthony fan. I think he's a good guy. I went on a radio station in Indianapolis yesterday and talked to them for about 20 minutes. I said, I don't know how he's going to do long term. Is he going to cash in or not? What I do know is the person Anthony is is not going to get in the way of the player who he turns out to be.
Mhm.
And that just speaks of his character. He's a good guy. He's going to take care of things off the field. Going to do what the franchise asks of him, and then it'll ultimately be up to whether or not he can find that consistency that you have to play with at that position.
For sure. Hey, Scott, great stuff, man. Appreciate it very much. You take care. And Gators won baseball tonight, and my Rays won 4-1, so it's a good night.
Good night on the diamond. All right, buddy. You have a good night, man.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Let's go to the green room. I tried to get him up a while ago, and everybody was on. I somehow clicked, but he didn't come up. And I think there he is. There he is. I hope he's in that hole
How's
again.
It going?
I got to bring him up a little bit. He's there. You go. Yeah.
There you go.
I think David Whitley's back. We lost David too. So we'll bring him back in here and see if we can get us all going in the right direction. There he is. All right. Hi, David. Can you see Lauren all right there? All right. Hope you hear this, David. He does. He's having computer problems. Lauren, my man.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Well, I'm better than you. You got to be jet lagged, dude.
Yeah, it's been a funny week getting back into the swing of things and hitting it hard at work. Got some stuff going on, changes on the job, but we manage.
Oh, good, I hope.
We'll see. Such is business, you know.
Yeah, I know how that goes. So I don't know if we'll get David back or not. We'll try in a minute. Toby Permanent said hello. Jerry Italiano said you. Everybody's saying hello, etc., etc. We're going to do your trivia in just 1 second. Let me go see if I can find David again. And I got one more spot to play here. Matter of fact, let me play the spot right now. Got to get paid here, you know.
Jeffrey, what are you doing?
Well, I'm joining the band, of course. Since Meldon Law is the official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, I want to help.
Dad, we're litigators. Let's stick to helping people in the courtroom.
Well, can we still hang out and jam a little bit? At Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Lauren Meadows with Gator Bait Media coming to you live in front of Visors, Tailgate, and Rooftop Bar and Spurs Gridiron Grill with Tuesday Night Trivia. Steve Spurrier was taken third in the 1967 NFL Draft by the San Francisco 49ers. Which two former Florida basketball players were taken third in their respective drafts? I'll give you a hint. One of them has a national title with the Florida Gators. Matter of fact, he has two. With Gator Bait Media, this is Lauren Meadows with Tuesday Night Trivia.
Little windy out there for Lauren, but he's back with us.
Yeah.
Repeat that. We'll go get David and bring him aboard too. So what's the question again?
So the question is, obviously, we always try to tie in the HBC. He was taken third in 1967 by the San Francisco 49ers. And in kind of a twist, I think Florida, I could be wrong, but I did my due diligence. Florida has two basketball players that were taken third in their respective drafts. Obviously, one of them, or not obvious, but one of them was part of the back-to-back national champions. Mm-hmm. And then there's another. So that's the question.
So they get if they get it right, they get in the hopper, right?
In the pot, yeah. And we've got a couple winners from April that we're gonna throw in the May drawing.
Well, it's starting to come in a little bit here. David, can you hear us all right? Well, David's gone again. David will have to try to give it up for the night. Your computer rose. Yeah. So how was your trip? I know you went to about 4 or 5 countries in a cruise and. Back to Paris, Paris again, and all that kind of stuff. International travel as you are, brother.
No, we just we went to the Eternal City of Rome, spent some time there, and then went to Paris and the Loire Valley, which is about about an hour and a half away from Paris. Spent some time there. They got some castles and different things. So and there's a medieval city. They pronounce it Blois. Actually, it's Blois, and spent some time there too. So it's kind of cool. On the sports scene, obviously the Olympics, Summer Olympics, 2024 Summer Olympics are in Paris. And one of the things I found out is, how they have the parade of nations and they walk around the track,
Right.
Well, if you know anything about Paris, the Seine River runs right through, basically through the middle of Paris.
Right.
They're going to have, that's where the parade of nations is going to be. Each country is going to have their own boat.
Yeah.
And they're going to set up stands on the
Makes
banks
sense.
of the Seine. So
Yeah,
that's good. A little different. That's
Yeah.
going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That is very cool. So, anyway, so somebody says, who is this? Germany magnificent. You will love. I can't read it. I can't read this right here. Whatever.
The castles in Germany. Yeah, that's there's a few. One of them, I think, the Sleeping Beauty's castle at Disney is patterned after one of the castles in Germany.
I was in Paris one time, Kentucky.
I'm sure you've been a lot of places.
Yeah,
for sure.
Beautiful city, beautiful place. Let's talk a little ball right now in our remaining minutes, and I want to talk about the safety that with the Gator background that was picked up today. You heard about him, Moten. Looks like he's a potential linebacker or maybe something in between. He's had a lot of playing time with the Wolverines. He's got roots here. His daddy played as a Gator. What have you heard? What do you know? What do you think?
Well, definitely. I mean, I think he's somebody that fits kind of that hybrid mode. And if you go back to, Louisiana, and I'll kind of think back to kind of our early conversations when we were looking at Patrick Toney and the defense that was run in Louisiana, they had a lot of those guys that were kind of tweeners that fit that kind of hybrid role that could play down in the box, but also play kind of on the hash and cover guys one-on-one and cover with some of those creepers and things like that. And if you look at, where they want to go defensively, now they want to be able to be multiple, be able to handle different types of looks and things like that. And those kind of guys are going to be very, very important to the overall scheme, particularly with the variants of offenses that you see in the SEC. And if you remember, we were talking earlier, I really thought that, the Florida Gators really needed a game-ready safety. Somebody that, was ready to play right now. And if you look at R.J. Moten, he's played a lot of snaps, played meaningful snaps for the Michigan Wolverines, played in some big-time football games. Somebody that can force the action, has a couple interceptions, has I think 1.5 sacks, maybe even more than that, but can affect the game in a lot of different ways, and his experience, and with with the young safeties that the Florida Gators have, although promising, just still young, I think he could come in and steady that room and give them some flexibility on the back end. So I think it's a good pickup. I think somebody that should come in right now, be ready to play, has a 40-inch vertical leap, which speaks to his explosiveness, and I think he'll do well.
All right, you mentioned snaps. I read this piece today about snaps. Somebody's evaluation of quarterbacks, one of the best I've seen so far, the ones who are drafted. And it's about the evidence that, for context on starting experience, particularly pertaining to Anthony. The Athletic did this. The college careers of every first-round quarterback last 15 years. Richardson had 13 career college starts, tied with Mitch Trubisky, the number 2 pick in 2017. And then they went on through it and said there's a relationship, how many snaps they play in college, quality snaps, and how well they play as a pro. They broke them down. And here's what they said. Say Young had 27, Stroud and Levis had 25. Since the 2008 draft, 7 quarterbacks have been drafted in the first round with fewer than 20 collegiate starts. That technically includes Ryan Tannehill, who started out as a receiver at Texas A&M before he became quarterback. So here are the snaps. Richardson had 13. Trey Lance and Mac Jones had 17. Kyler Murray had 18. Dwayne Haskins had only 14. Mitch Trubisky had 13. And Tannehill had 19. And Mark Sanchez had 16. That tell you anything?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the list, I mean, it tells you a lot. I mean, if you just look at the basic production of the guys that have the least snaps, I mean, it's not necessarily a who's who of top quarterbacks right now. But what I will say is, in Anthony Richardson's defense, we could probably argue that he could have probably started, let's say 7 to 8 more games as a collegiate, probably, depending on how things would have gone. So that's one thing. And I think that, people, at least the way I look at it with Anthony Richardson is, I think that he's somebody that I truly think can benefit from football 24/7. And, the type of people he's going to have around him. I'm sure he's in touch with, Brian Johnson, the relationship there.
Who's the OC now, as you know, in Philadelphia?
The OC now with the Eagles, and his connection with, obviously the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts now, and I think the same kind of adjustments and different things. I mean, imagine that you know good and well on 3rd and short, they're going to use that exact same quarterback sneak that they use. I mean, because they've got a good offensive line too. Mm-hmm. Plus, he has a solid run game behind him, arguably the best back in the league with Jonathan Taylor. It's going to be interesting. I'm not gonna. Obviously, you can look at that piece of data and say, yeah, there's something there. But, I'm not going to just bet. I'm not going to use that synopsis alone or that data set alone to kind of, I think it's 50-50 right now with Anthony.
Yeah, I think you made a good point. I agree with you. He could have played more. To me, and I just think there comes a time when your talent and your brute force take over. And you got 3rd and 1, you got Anthony, you got all those big bodies in there. There's no way to stop him, basically. You just can't. I mean, law of gravity. Mm-hmm. People occasionally will, but the odds are really big in your favor when you can dominate the line of scrimmage like that.
Right.
So, all right. So we better get in there and see who's got some right answers. Have you seen any so far? If so, who got it first?
Yeah, I mean it's usual suspect, and it's a new month, so he can be in the drawing. Toby Marion, you gotta find that guy in Ocala, and I think you just need to take him over. A hand copied Buddy Martin signed.
So here we give
HBC
up. Wave the white flag.
Because that's it. Yeah, just wave the white flag and tell him get him, and get him up to Spurrier's for a dinner or something, because he was right on it. I mean, and I got to give him credit. There's no way he could have looked it up that fast. So the man knows his stuff.
He's sharp, very sharp, and we'll hit Freddie up and say, look, we got a special guy here, and so give him the answers.
So the answers were Al Horford, who went 3rd to the Boston Celtics, obviously still a member of the Celtics, kind of left, came back. Mm-hmm. And then one of my favorites, Bradley Beal, who I think is, I have a lot of respect for as a basketball player and as a person, but also, he's kind of decided that he's going to hang in there in the DMV and not chase titles and things like that. Just hang in there with the Wizards. So,
Have you watched any basketball the last couple of nights?
Oh yeah. I'm a big. I'm probably more of. I'm one of the people that's. I'm a big
15.
Laker fan, even before LeBron.
What's
And
tonight's
but
score? Do you know what the score is tonight? The Lakers game. You have any idea?
they don't. I think they
Tomorrow night?
it's another. They play here in about 15 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And but yeah, I like the NBA. I'm actually one of the few people who likes the NBA better than college basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because you know all those rich guys and hang out with them. That's why. All right, Lauren did it again. Go ahead.
What's that, sir?
I said you did it again. You came in here, brought the goods, and you gave it up. We're going to have to just give maybe a permanent seat, Toby, and give me a certain permanent seat at Spurrier's, right? With his name on it.
Yeah.
Hey, Lauren, good stuff, brother. Good to have you back.
Those Ocala guys, they're smart.
Oh, they're
thank
smart
you,
guys.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Lauren, thank you, man. Good to see you again. Love to Mama.
All right.
See you later.
Yes, sir.
The great Lauren
All
Meadows, Coach Meadows in the house. So thank you. All right. Let's see here. Let's log this off and finish up tonight. I want to tell folks about our good friends at Renstar. They are really good people and good friends. Important to me that you pay attention to this because they support our town and support this show and support the community. They've been Gators. Their son played for the Gators. Renstar Medical Research is kind of a special place. They have a high quality, patient-centered clinical research facility right there in downtown Ocala. Renstar brings cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like dementia, Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, fibromyalgia, many of those conditions that affect our community and others. Since 1998, they've been doing these clinical trials. But by the way, you can be a part of them if you want to try to qualify. Go to Renstar.net and find the details and get compensated for time and travel. But they partner with prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry to find a better way to take care of us. So check them out, Renstar.net. See if you can fit the profile of someone who wants to be a part of these. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching and being a part of this. Thanks for all of our sponsors. And again, Gators win tonight in baseball over FSU and 7-5, and Rays win 4-1. All right, let's go watch some other sports. Have a good night, folks. Talk to you tomorrow night. We've got our A-team back tomorrow night. You'll love the show. It'll be great. Allie Peak and David Moulton. Good night.